Good morning, you guys. I'm up early this Sunday morning catching up on some reading, and I came across this article um, where a survey was done of 12 homeless people in San Francisco, and they basically were asked how it happened, and they were asked to share some of their story. And I just find it interesting. Actually, some of it resonates with me because I had a bout of homelessness myself, um, and I can share a little bit of that later on. However, um, we just assume that most homeless people are either mentally ill or drug addicts, but that's not necessarily so. Some people just fall up on hard times for different reasons, which is what we'll see in this article. And some of the reasons may surprise you. They just may surprise you how homelessness happens, and really it can happen to any of us. We used to say that we're a paycheck away from homelessness. Now we're probably a day away or a week away, the way things are going. And especially with the fact that they're bringing in all this artificial intelligence and robots are going to be taking over our jobs and things like that. So we don't know, when or if it'll happen to any of us. So we need to prepare. And I'm going to share some things that um, if someone finds himself homeless, some things that they can do to kind of help with that. So I'll share that in a moment. Okay, so the way homelessness is described is anyone living in a temporary shelter or with a nighttime residence not designed for sleeping, including a car, a park, camping group, airport, abandoned building, bus or train station. These people are considered homeless. Okay, so basically, if you don't have the proper um, housing or shelter that is designed for living, then that would be considered homeless. Okay, so a little bit of statistical information. It says in the U.S., more than 500,000 people do not have a place to call home. Nearly half are families, and one quarter are children, and nearly 8% are military veterans. And that's sad for both of those demographics of people because we think of homeless, a lot of people, I should say, think of homeless people as a single person out there living on the streets, but in reality, there are entire families that are homeless. There are little bitty newborn babies that are homeless. There are, school age children that sleep on the streets at night and then they go to school in the daytime. So there are different homeless types of situations, and a lot of military people are homeless, and that's really sad to me because these people have risked their lives for this country, and they don't have the services that they need. My dad was a military veteran, and he didn't have nearly the amount of services that he needed. Yes, he was able to go to the VA for certain medical things, but he himself was homeless for a long period of time, and he lived in a different state and didn't want to come out here where he could have had shelter. But you know, a lot of veterans do suffer, and they don't get the services they need, including housing. And so, let me just go on to share with you what some of these people said. Okay, so the question was, how did you become homeless? What happened? Okay, so this one person says, I was hit by a drunk driver. I got addicted to pain medication. I was driving from California to visit my mom in New York, and I was hit. I was in a coma for 10 months. I could live with my mom, but I don't want to impose. And there are some people who perhaps can live with someone, but they just choose not to. Okay, another person says I was living in Pacific Heights, and that's a section in San Francisco. I had a great job. I had a miscarriage and took time off from work. And they says San Francisco is great, but there's no bumper. Okay, and someone else says it's very complicated. My son was killed. I lost my job. I ended up in jail for a year. It was an accident. I was driving and I crashed. I wasn't drinking, but I ran into a city truck. I worked in construction and worked at the post office. My wife and I had a home, and when we divorced, we had to sell it. Okay, so sounds like this person found himself homeless after this car accident he had, and when he got divorced and had to sell his house, which that's very common, relationship issues and divorce. A lot of people find themselves homeless because of that. Okay, someone else says there was a car accident. I broke my hip, but I don't want to go into all of that right now. And that's what that person said, and that's a 59-year-old person. And then this person says divorce. When I married her, we moved into her parents' house. When we divorced, I moved out. Okay, so there's another divorce. And then this person said, I was married and working. Then I got laid off from my job in a warehouse. One thing led to another. And this person says he's been living on the streets for 8 years, and he's 60 years old. Wow. And then this person says, I got laid off. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and was doing construction. Okay, so they lost their job. Nearly all the people we encountered are desperate to find housing and work, but even with a job, securing a rental is like moving a mountain. Okay, so they're saying that, at least half of these people really, really want to work, but they can't, find work, and even when they do, they still have a hard time finding housing, and that is true because to rent a place, you have to pay 3 times the rent. And a studio apartment can cost you $2,000 in San Francisco. So, and that's not even to have a bedroom. That's a studio. So that means you would have to come up with about $6,000 to move in. That's ridiculous. Okay, this person says I had a skateboarding accident. My brain was bleeding. I can't move my shoulder. I worked in construction, but now I can't do that job. I can't do the hammering motion. I tried living in a shelter, but it's worse than jail. Okay. Um, this person says basically my parents retired and moved out of an area and I couldn't afford housing. I've been homeless since I was 19 years old. I have PTSD. I was beat up living on the streets when I was a teenager. I have anxiety and panic attacks. I have been addicted to meth before, but I was able to stop. I know what that's like and I'm not going back to it. Okay, and this person also says that they just found out that they're going to be processed into sober living housing. So that's very good. And he's been living on the streets for 15 years. That's a long time. This person said, I kicked myself out of the Ivory Tower, which is my mom's place. I was looking out at it one day and I said, what are you doing? There are people living out there living on the streets, and I chose to go live with them. My mother and I get along great, but I can't stand her husband. And, that's very common too. Some people do have a person that they can stay with, but they just, they consider the living situation unbearable, and so they prefer the streets than to put up with whatever, is happening in their house. And there's just a few more here. This person says, I was in the Marine Corps for 16 years. I could get veterans disability, but I don't want it because it's labeling myself. Now, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. Now, I have heard people say that they don't want to get certain government assistance because they don't want to say that they're mentally ill on paper. I have heard that, but this person is a veteran, so I don't understand why he's choosing not to get the money, but I guess he has his reasons. He says, I paid for my first home when I was 29. I bought 2 homes, one in Illinois with my first wife and one in California with my second wife in Redwood City. My wife broke the vows of fidelity and I filed for divorce. And that's when I started living on the streets. And this person is 59 years old. And let's not forget targeted individuals who suffer so much every day. There are constant attempts to systematically destroy a targeted individual from everyone and everything, including housing and shelter and any kind of services that they may get, and any kind of forms of support from friends or used to be friends and family. Um, Many targeted individuals are homeless and live on the streets, and it's very intentional. um, I myself constantly get people, and I know it's perpetrated activity, but constantly get people saying, "Are you selling your house?" I had someone call me not long ago. "I know this call is very strange, but I'd like to buy your house." Just like try to put these threats in my mind that we're going to lose our house, but I don't worry about stuff like that. But I'm saying these are the type of things that happen to targeted individuals. They try to make sure that you don't have a stable place to live. So, keep everybody who is homeless lifted up in prayer. And I myself has been homeless for a short period of time, so I know what it's like, and I will fall under that category of relationships because I chose. Some people would, excuse me for clearing my throat. Some people would, say I voluntarily chose homelessness, and I guess you could look at it that way. But I was in a relationship that I know was not good for me, and I'm so sorry. I have to keep clearing my throat, but I'm battling a cold. I was in a relationship that was not good for me, and so I chose to quit my job, give up my apartment, give up my car, and move to a different state. And that's what I chose for myself because I knew that the situation would not be good for me in the end. And so I have dealt with the homelessness, contrary to what people think that I've always had it good in life. No, I have not. Um, and it's scary. It's very scary being on the streets. I initially moved with a family member in another state, and I just didn't like it there. I tried. I got two jobs, not one, but two jobs. But I was not used to the cold winters and the very hot summers, and I was homesick, even though that's really my home. The other place is really my home, but I've been here in California since I was young, so I consider this home. And I didn't adjust, and so I chose to come back. And when I came back, I had nowhere to go, and I think that a lot of people who deal with homelessness can relate to what I'm about to say. I was the type of person who would help anybody in my family, but when I found that I needed that help, it wasn't there. So I found myself staying in seedy hotels, which was very, very scary in very, very bad areas, not knowing where my next meal was going to come from. I did have a little money saved up from those jobs I worked in the other state, but that quickly ran out. Okay, so um, yeah, and for me, it was due to a bad relationship. And if you guys want to hear a story time on that relationship, let me know, and I'll do another video on that. Because there were some lessons learned, and when I look back, I think that that person may have been sent to me. I think I may have been targeted back then, and not know it. So let me know if you guys want to hear a story time on that. But just to conclude here, homelessness, it can happen to any of us. It really can. Um, I mean, we just heard some real life things, some everyday things that really happens. A person was hit by a drunk driver, divorce, people being laid off from their jobs, people getting unexpected illnesses and couldn't recover from them, and can't go back to work. So it really, really can happen. We're all close to the streets. So here's some things that you can do. Definitely sign up for social services if you ever find yourself in this situation. You might, if you normally when homelessness happens, you can see that it's coming. So, um, if you see it's coming, like a week or two before it happens, sign up for all the social services help that you can get. And don't feel bad about that, because most of us have paid into the system. We have paid into Social Security. We have paid into Medi-Cal. We have paid into all of this. Okay, so make sure you sign up for it. You deserve to have that. This is a time where you really need help. So make sure you sign up for your food stamps, any kind of general assistance, or it's called Cal Works out here, I think, where they'll give you some money. And just know that social services also has access to hotel vouchers, bus tickets, clothes, and they can put you in touch with other services that you may need, even mental health. Some people really do need mental health because it's hard living on the streets and finding yourself homeless. Excuse me. Um, Also, make sure you utilize all of your food banks, your soup kitchens, and try to make sure you keep up on your nutrition and eat healthy every day. Reach out to your local churches. Even if you are not a member of that church, most churches will help you, and some of them have services and resources for homeless people. Um, if you are a person who deals with domestic violence, there are domestic violence services and agencies that can help you. So please get in touch with them. And I just would advise anyone, don't stay in a situation that's not healthy for you. Okay, even if it is mentally abusive, that's a step before the physical. Okay, so don't stay in those situations. Um, Reach out to help. Reach out for help, I should say, to anyone in your life that you might even remotely think might help you. Okay. Don't assume that people won't help. You know, as they say, a closed mouth don't get fed. So ask. You know, there's someone I know that is homeless, and I help him. You know, and he's a person who really does not like to ask for help, but I help him. Okay, I give him rides, I buy him food, I give him money when I can. You know, I help him. So, I mean, he has found himself a roommate. So, and that's the other thing. Look for possible roommates. Okay, I was able to get myself out of the situation by thinking of that one person that I thought just might let me, sleep on his couch. And he was actually an ex-neighbor of mine, and we were pretty cordial when we lived in the same apartment building. But of course, I gave up everything and I moved. But I thought about him, and he was like, "Sure." Sure. And then, like, there was no relationship. It was none of that. But he was like, sure, and I paid him a little bit I could. But that's everything when you can get that help, because that gives you a more stable environment. Okay. And then from there, I was able to find a job and everything. So, anybody who you think may help you, they may not let you live with them, but they may be able to help you with some other things. Okay, the person that I know, once he found a roommate, I was able to give him some things around my house that I'm not using, lamps and towels and things like that. So any of that stuff is helpful. Okay, and if you are a person who are able to help someone, then help, even if it's a total stranger. Random acts of kindness are good. Okay. Shelters are always an option. Now, I've heard that shelters can be dangerous, and not clean and things like that, but I do know someone who stayed in a shelter for a year, and it was something he was saying about you have to stay a year, and then they'll help you find housing. And so now this person has his own apartment, and this is a whole different person from the other one I told you guys about. Okay, so that might be an option for some. Okay, whatever money you do have, try your best to save most of it. Okay, because you're going to need it. Maybe you can save enough to get a car, or a van, or a trailer, or even a hotel room. There are times where You may not be able to afford a hotel for the long run, but there are times where you're just going to want to get off the street if you possibly can. Okay, especially if you're dealing with the illness or trying to recover or something like that. Okay. I've heard people say that they pay for gym memberships so that they can take showers every day. Okay, so that's very important to try to keep up on your hygiene, which can be very challenging if you have no place to go. Try to do any kind of work you can do. Um, there is a website called TaskRabbit where you can do odd jobs like mowing lawns and cleaning garages, and people just post for small things that they may need. So check that website out. And there are other websites. There are dog walker agencies and things like that. Okay. Um, One of the first things I did when I came back to California is I tried to, and I really didn't have a place to call my own. I tried to stay in a routine. I tried to get up every day, take care of my hygiene, dress up, and look for a job. That was like my main goal. I knew I needed a job. And when I was thinking about working, the first thing that came to mind was to apply at places where I had already worked. Because uh, when you apply for places that you're familiar with, that will give you an advantage because companies like people who already know their business. And so the first places I applied was places where I already worked. And lo and behold, one of them hired me back. And that's how I was able to get back on my feet. So you might want to try that. Um, and you're going to need access to a computer because that's just where we are in this world. So go to the library, um, apply for jobs, stay up on what's going on and all your resources, and make sure you're following up on everything that you've applied for. Show up at places when you say you're going to be there for an interview or for something that you're signing up for. Make sure you show up and just do what you can. Do what you can to try to get yourself out of that situation. Pray, ask God for help, and believe me, He'll help you. He helped me. And like I said, look for that one person. You might have a great aunt somewhere or an uncle somewhere. Like, my uncle was willing to help me in that other state. Um, Rest his soul, he's passed now, but he was a great help to help me to get out of that bad situation I was in. So you never know, who will help you, but don't be afraid to ask for the help. Okay, so hopefully, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully I said something that can help someone, but I just thought that this was an interesting article, and some of it kind of really resonated with me. So I wanted to share it with you guys. Okay, so pray for people who are out there, especially at a time like this when it's cold, the weather conditions are bad. And as I said, there are children on the streets, there are senior citizens on the streets. Many of these people face violent situations while they're out there. There are young people, teenagers, runaways on the streets. So just pray for these people, and also there are a lot of homeless people that have disappeared. They just disappeared. Okay, and there are different theories out there about why. But keep them lifted up in prayer. Okay, and just know that it can happen to any of us. So God bless and stay strong, you guys. Okay, so after I finished that, the video that you just heard, I realized that I left off some very important things that I want to add. And so I'm doing a whole separate little recording, and I'm going to splice it at the end of the video that you just heard. So it may sound a little strange the way it's all spliced together, but I just want to make sure I include these things that I remembered after the video was done. And one of those things is that many of the people who are homeless are actually targeted individuals. Some of them may know that they're targeted, but many of them do not. They think that, they just had this bad series of events to happen in their lives, which they did have a bad series of events, but a lot of those events were orchestrated and they were designed to make the person homeless. Even some of the examples that I read about where people had car accidents or divorce issues or lost their jobs, a lot of that was orchestrated. And if you do not know, if you're listening to this and you do not know what a targeted individual is, please look it up. Please look it up. And you can look at some of my videos to talk about targeting. There's other videos. You can Google it. Okay. And you'll find out what a targeted individual is, especially if you are a homeless person listening to this, because it may bring some clarity into your situation. Okay. Another thing I wanted to mention is that many homeless people who are targeted are stalked very, very heavily, which is also a part of targeting, if you don't know what targeting is. And they deal with some very hard circumstances. Okay, I know a person who is really dealing with some serious targeting, living on the streets, which can make it that much harder to deal with this whole targeting thing, because you really don't have a refuge. You really don't have a separate place where you can go to get temporary relief from the targeting. Okay, so that can make it very, very difficult. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that many of the homeless people that we see talking to themselves, they're just walking around and they're just talking and they just seem like they're out of their minds. They may be dealing with V2K, which is another part of targeting, if you're not familiar with targeting. I don't believe those people are just not talking to anyone. I think they're talking to the voices in their heads. And so if you know anybody like this, just try to explain it to them that, there's a possibility that they could be targeted. Many of these people may appear mentally ill, but they're really dealing with directed energy being beamed at them. Okay, believe that or not, if you are a person who does not understand what a targeted individual is. Okay, so those are the things that I thought of after I completed the video, so I wanted to make sure to add those things. Also, if you have anything to add to this conversation, please leave your comments in the comment section. Please thumbs up this video. Hit that bell in the upper right corner so you will be notified when I upload a video. And please leave your comments. And subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed. Thank you.